Jim, Carroll, Ralph Baber, psychology takeaway. Need a dose of the real, life's absurd, we know the deal. Did you hear? Don't let it get you down. Turn that frown upside down, down, upside.
Well, hi, this is Jim.
And Ralph.
We get the two of us in here together. Well, Ralph, you can see I'm wearing my patriotic red, white, and blue shirt
You are?
and my patriotic three-corner hat.
All right.
That's in favor of the brave folks that fought in the Revolution.
Yes.
Notice my glasses?
Yes.
In case we had lost the Revolution and we all looked like Elton John, we'd be wearing glasses like these.
That would be true.
Now, you were going to wear red, white, and blue also, Ralph.
Well,
I see
I'm
some
wearing blue.
Yes.
I have a big white beard.
Where's the red?
My coffee cup.
Okay. And if you get your tongue wrapped around your teeth and get embarrassed and you have a big red
My
face.
face will be red, yes.
Okay, so there we have it. Well, the last 2 weeks we've been talking about fear. The first edition that we did was sort of what are the general fears that people had, and existential fears in general, and relationship fears, and some specific fears. And then last week we talked about how fear is acquired. We talked about little Albert.
Fear can be learned.
Yeah, we talked about little Albert, and we talked about Garcia and the wolves.
The wolves, yes.
And one of the things that you mentioned is that wolves that didn't get sick began to fear sheep.
Yeah, because wolves are pack animals, and somehow or other they communicated within the pack
That
sheep were dangerous.
Yeah. Okay. So, and they weren't. So this is a topic that you're going to talk more about today, right?
Right. Now, we're going to talk about phobias, but there's two terms, because they both both start with P, that are often confused: paranoia and phobia.
Okay.
Paranoia is a fear that something or someone is out to get you.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're embezzling from your company, you're afraid of the FBI. If you're selling secrets to an enemy of the United States, you're afraid of the CIA. Those are, if not irrational, at least semi-rational fears.
Yeah.
Now, fears that the space aliens may probe you, that's probably pretty irrational. But a phobia, by definition, is a fear that is greatly exaggerated over the actual risk.
Mm-hmm.
So a phobia is an irrational fear taken to an extreme.
What are some examples of phobias?
Well, you could fear elevators.
Okay.
You could fear snakes.
Okay.
You could fear dogs.
Mm-hmm.
You could fear, as little Albert did, any furry animal.
Uh-huh.
So, there's lots of things that people fear. Fear of flying.
Mm-hmm. Well, in the case of little Albert, he originally acquired fear through classical conditioning, and then he generalized. But, some people have never flown, and yet they say they don't want to fly. Some people have never encountered a snake, and yet they say, I just don't want to encounter snakes and touch snakes. We were talking to the manager of the coffee shop today, and she said, that if somebody, gave her or made her touch a great big snake, she wouldn't be frightened. But the little ones that creep around here in Michigan, she didn't like.
Yeah.
I don't really like snakes. I don't go to my way to interact with snakes.
Well, the thing is that some of those fears probably are based on ancestral memories.
Mm-hmm.
So fear of wolves, fear of snakes, fear of bright red berries. You know,
At
they
one point in time, they could have been dangerous, right?
yeah,
But they're probably not dangerous
they're
now,
probably not dangerous now.
at least living in Michigan.
Now, I'll tell our listeners a story about two guys in Florida in their 30s who were out in the backyard in the evening, uh, and one of them found in the grass a rattlesnake,
Okay.
and they started throwing it back and forth.
That is,
So
that's
one
someone's
guy
going to
threw
get
it
the
at
Darwin
other guy
Award
who
here.
caught it and threw it back. Finally, one of them, the rattlesnake, who at this point was
Ticked off.
not exactly
Yeah.
happy, bit him right on the carotid, and he died.
Yeah.
Now, there may have been some beer and tequila involved.
I would think. Yeah. Like I
Uh,
say, Darwin Award material here all the
You
way.
know, that is not a phobia. That's a realistic fear. I don't want to start hurling a rattlesnake at a friend of mine.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, people have irrational fears of a lot of things.
Well, John Madden did not like to fly. He refused to fly. And, he was the sports announcer, right?
All right.
And so his network, because they wanted to keep him as a sports announcer, outfitted a great big bus so he could take the bus from one sports venue to another. And as I mentioned last week, if you and I had to go someplace, our boss said, go someplace, and we said, well, yeah, put together a great big bus and we'll take the bus and we'll get there in a week or so, we probably would not be employed.
Yeah.
But
well, the thing
they
is,
wanted Madden, okay?
Yeah.
And Madden,
commanded a very big audience.
yeah, and he didn't have to change his phobic behavior.
Right.
But if you and I had that kind of phobic behavior, we probably would have to change it or just suck it up and get on the airplane, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, Louis Armstrong was asked when he was at the height of his trumpet playing, and he traveled to a lot of venues to play, and he flew probably 1 million miles a year because he went overseas quite often. And somebody asked him if he was afraid of flying, and he said, well, you know what? There's one thing about flying. They may kill you, but they ain't likely to hurt you. And I think that's true. I mean, if the aeroplane drops out of the sky for some strange reason, probably you're toast, almost literally. But you're not likely to get hurt. Unless you have aversion to very small seats anymore.
Okay. I'm going to have to think about that one. Louis Armstrong, okay. Philosophical. Philosophical. Let's take a look at the Stoics. Stoics have said something to the effect of, this would be Epictetus, that most people are afraid of things that never have happened.
Never happened.
Never happened. But that doesn't mean that fear is totally irrational, is it?
No. So, for example, you might be afraid, a lot of people are afraid of needles.
Yeah.
I know people who basically have to take a pill that makes them relax so they can have blood drawn.
Uh-huh.
But, I go in, I get blood drawn, they put a needle in me, it's no big deal.
Mm-hmm.
But there's lots of people for whom that is a big deal.
Mm-hmm. I can remember a friend of ours, Judy, who had an aversion to this. And as I understood it, she once had some blood drawn, and she was a pretty thin person, maybe didn't have a lot of blood anyway. and so she passed out,
Fainted, yeah,
fainted. Yeah, and that was the beginning of an aversion to getting blood drawn for her.
yeah,
So that was a learned thing. Okay,
yeah,
but it generalized so that probably any kind of needle would be what aversive.
aversive,
If
yeah.
she needed a shot, that would probably be aversive.
Yeah, and my wife, one of the things that when she was in high school, they told her that a career for women of a certain period in high school, she was still at the time when career for women was often nursing.
Uh huh.
And she did a self assessment and said, uh, I hate anything that is bleeding.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not likely to be a successful nurse. So that was out.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Now, one
the
of the
fear
things
gave her information, right?
yeah,
Okay, and she was able to use that information to make some decisions.
a decision,
Yeah.
yeah. Now, one of the things a lot of people are afraid of, some to the point of a phobic reaction, is public speaking.
Yeah, that used to be on my list number one, but I looked at Chat GTP and it's down the list somewhat now.
But the thing is that, okay, if you're in a school setting and they say, okay, you're going to have to do an oral report to the class on such and such,
Mm-hmm.
that's one kind of public speaking. And you might say, oh, I don't want to do that. You get up and your knees are shaking and you almost think you're going to throw up, but you do it anyway. But the thing is that there are other times where public speaking is voluntary.
Mm-hmm.
For example, you're at a city council meeting and you don't like what they're doing in your neighborhood or planning to do, and you have to stand up and say, I don't like this. I don't think we should do it.
Uh-huh.
And a lot of times I've been at several city council meetings where somebody stood up and said something, and you could hear the tremolo in their voice. Their voice was shaking
Mm-hmm.
because they had such nervousness about public speaking,
Okay, speaking in public.
speaking in public.
Mhm.
Yeah. So almost anything you can learn to make that a phobia.
Mm-hmm.
Now,
Yeah.
you don't consciously say, I'm going to make a phobia about elevators, but, you know,
Mm-hmm.
that becomes that.
Yeah. Well, you talked about your wife. Sheila doesn't like those modern elevators that are all like plexiglass,
Uh-huh.
where you can see all around you and see the floors going by. We were at a hotel a couple months ago, had elevators like that, and she got into it, but she was uncomfortable. And we talked, I guess, last week about the wheel
Mhm.
in London. It's all plexiglass, very safe. You're not going to fall through the floor or anything, but for her, that was just not what she wanted where she wanted to be.
Yeah.
My kid and I, hey, we loved it, but not she. So at some point in time, maybe from a survival point of view, people learned to avoid things that were potentially dangerous,
Yeah.
like heights. You told the story to me, at least last week, about you almost falling off a mountain.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, I did fall off, but not very far, about 25 feet. And below me was a very flat sheet of rock.
Uh-huh.
But the piece of the edge of the cliff, 25-foot cliff down to the sheet of rock that I was standing on, suddenly broke
Yeah.
away.
But
And I fell, landed on the flat rock, did a back roll, came up, was not injured, but Karen, my wife, who was
Mm.
up there.
There's Ralph again. Ta-da! Just
Yeah,
doing
you
your
know,
stuff.
She had visions of
Yeah.
me dead or badly injured. And
Because that cliff was, yes, you fell onto I guess, a safety net, but had you missed that or had it not been there, you would have been going down another, what, a couple hundred feet?
yeah, that's the Root River Gorge, and it's altogether about 200 feet high.
Yeah. So the wise thing to do, if you're going to be a man out in the woods, is to avoid getting too close to the edge of ravines, right?
Right.
Okay. Or if you're going to jump out of an airplane, make sure that everybody checks their parachutes, and you check
Including yourself.
Yeah, you check your parachute. Yeah.
Now, here's the thing that almost all of us do these two things regularly, many times a day.
What's that?
We go into a room which is dim,
Mm-hmm.
and we hit an electric switch,
You turn on the light.
turn on a light.
Okay.
Or we go out and jump in our car and
Mhm.
turn the car on.
Okay.
Now, objectively, both electricity and automobiles are much more likely to kill you than garter snakes.
Yeah, right.
But we don't have any fear of those two modern things because we haven't got the ancestral memory that says snakes are dangerous, bears are dangerous, heights are dangerous,
Cars and switches aren't dangerous.
aren't dangerous.
Yeah. Okay.
Because they always work until they don't.
Mm-hmm. This gets me into thinking about technology. And I think in the first episode, we talked about what would happen if you or I were exposed to media, either social media or electronic media, 24 hours a day, that was telling us awful, terrible, things about the planet, our world. Would that affect us?
I think so. And, one of the examples of that is global warming.
Mm-hmm.
Now, a lot of people on media talk about global warming.
Mm-hmm. It sure is warm here in Mount Pleasant this week, I tell you that.
But if you look going back to 1925,
Uh-huh.
and you go through the 30s,
Mm-hmm.
global warming was much greater in the 30s, the Dust Bowl era, when Oklahoma had most of its topsoil blowing away,
Uh-huh.
because there was no rain for about 3 years. So you look at the temperature graphs, and they were higher in the 30s than they are now,
Mm-hmm.
even though this summer is hotter than what we might call average for Michigan.
Uh-huh.
It's still not necessarily the hottest time that we've ever seen
Okay.
in North America.
So if you want to sort of debunk these things that we're being assailed with, like global warming, you have to have a historical perspective, right? You have to be able to look at it for a long period of time. Like you said, you go back to 1925. That's 100 years. Most of us don't go back 100 years when we're trying to check our facts, do we?
No, the thing is that a lot of people who are talking about global warming, they go back, if they go back at all, they go back to maybe 1960,
Mm-hmm.
Or 1966.
Okay.
And they say, look, that's 40 years.
Yeah.
Or
Or whatever it is, yeah.
Yeah. So the thing is, you have to put things in a much longer perspective to be able to say for sure the planet is getting warmer, the Arctic is melting, the Antarctic is melting, which, by the way, the Arctic might be melting a little bit, the Antarctic is gaining ice.
Okay.
So,
Yeah. Well, it's kind of like global warming is one. I can't go into my splash screen on my computer without seeing dire warnings about the stock market crashing. Now, it's at a record high, and is it going to continue to be at a record high? Probably not. Is it going to go down? Probably. Same kind of cyclic thing.
yeah.
But over the period of time when we've been looking at a stock market, it will continue to have this upward acceleration, even though we
Yeah.
might see some fluctuations. But there are people who are genuinely fearful and maybe so, maybe rightly so.
Well, here's the thing, Jim. It depends on your idea of the stock market. If your idea is I'm 25 and I've got $100 a month spare,
Mm-hmm.
which is maybe for a lot of people a ludicrous statement, but I can do something with this $100. Do I put it in my bank account and leave it there? No, I'm going to put it into the stock market.
Going to invest in the stock market, yeah.
Now, I'm looking at when I retire,
Maybe
at
30 or 40 years from
40
yeah.
years from now.
Right.
Over the course of that 40 years, I will make money
Yeah.
regardless of whether the stock market goes up or down short term.
Mm-hmm.
But the people in 1929, the year of the stock market crash, a lot of people had gone out and said, the market's going up. It's going up really fast. I'm going to borrow money.
Uh-huh.
So they borrowed money. They put it in the stock market. In 1927, it went up. They put the money that they made into the stock market again. In 1928, it went up.
Mm-hmm.
1929, it started up, and then it suddenly crashed.
Right.
So people said, oh, I don't have any money. In fact, I owe $10,000. Now, $10,000 then would be like $1 million today.
Okay.
So people
right.
started committing suicide.
Yeah. But most of us have not lived through the crash of 29. And yet, on my splash screen, people are saying that they are afraid that they're going to lose everything. Well, I guess if you're 75 or 80 years of age and all of your funds get wiped out in the short run, you might say, well, I don't have that many years to recoup. But if you're 30, you still have 30 to 40 years to recoup your losses. So,
yeah, and of course, the other thing is that you say, okay, I'm 75 and I'm invested in the stock market. Do you think this might be a good time to de-invest and say, okay, I'm not going to play the game that the market's going up every day. I'm going to generally get out of it and put my investments into something more secure.
no, we're not going to do that, Ralph. You know why? Our old friend FEMO, fear of missing out. Okay, I'm not going to take my money out of the stock market and put it in under my mattress or put it into nice, safe bonds, because who knows, that thing might go up another 5,000 points tomorrow.
Yeah.
And maybe I'll buy SpaceX and it'll go up. So fear of missing out, very big variable for Gen X and Gen Alpha and millennials is going to, sort of short circuit, rational decision making. And that's what we see with a lot of fears. They don't really fit into the rational decision making mode. Yeah, if you're in Africa, maybe a fear of snakes is, a good thing. Maybe if you're in Florida, there are rattlesnakes, and avoiding them would be a good thing. Not picking them up and throwing them back and forth, with a friend. if you're in a country that has venomous spiders, it would be a good thing to avoid those.
Yeah.
If when I don't like getting any kind of vaccinations, any kind of shots. But when Sheila and I went, and Sheila doesn't either. But when we went to Nigeria, we had to have shots or inoculations against yellow fever. And hey, we took the shots. Here in the United States, the probability of getting yellow fever is really, really nil, right?
Yeah.
In Nigeria, the probability of getting yellow fever is a little bit higher. But are we willing to take the risk of a little bit? Or are we going to be like, you should have stayed a little bit further away from the edge of your cliff? Well, in this case, the cliff is, the potential for yellow fever. And my decision is going to be, I'm going to take the shot, even though I don't like shots, in order to avoid this potential illness.
Now, avoidance sounds harmless. Avoid dogs, avoid snakes, avoid flying. But there are some disadvantages to planning your life around avoidance.
Okay, like what?
Well, it provides immediate relief, but avoidance then says it works.
Uh-huh.
But the brain never gets the opportunity to discover that dogs are, by and large, really friendly and not harmful.
Uh-huh, good.
Or I can get in an elevator and go up and down.
And probably won't get killed.
And it's okay.
Mm-hmm.
So every successful escape reduces the fear. Every avoidance strengthens the fear.
Uh-huh, okay. Now, we've talked in our, this is the third episode, and next week in our fourth episode, we're going to be beginning to talk about therapies for fear. We're going to talk about how you overcome fear.
Okay. Now, phobias, we didn't really say how widespread they are, but it looks like it's about 7 to 10% of the people in the United States have a phobia of one kind or another.
Uh-huh. It's going across the Mackinac Bridge, your fear of spiders or snakes or something like that. So 1 out of 10.
One out of 10. So we say, okay, now, can we treat the 1 out of 10? And the answer would seem to be yes.
Yes. Yep. My colleague, Don, from across the hall in Sloan Hall, was a successful therapist who his doctoral dissertation was on snake phobias, and he was able to treat a lot of people who had phobic conditions, not just snakes, but other kinds of conditions as well. And so next week, we will get into what? Treatments.
Treatments,
Okay.
yeah.
I'm going to push this button. I pushed the wrong button last time. We'll see if this one works, Ralph. Hey, it did. I'm not going to fear these buttons anymore, Ralph.
Right.
Until next week, this is Jim.
And Ralph.
Saying, keep your stick on the ice.
Because we're all in this
together.